Can I tell you one of the biggest misconceptions about relationships? Many people think relationships end because of cheating. Others think relationships end because of constant fighting. But in my experience as a therapist, many relationships don't die because of one big event. They die because of small hurts that never heal. A wife asks for help repeatedly and feels ignored. A husband works hard to provide for his family and feels unappreciated. Someone keeps apologizing without change. Someone keeps sacrificing without feeling seen, and little by little, disappointment turns into frustration. Frustration turns into bitterness, and bitterness turns into resentment. The dangerous thing about resentment is that it doesn't arrive loudly. It doesn't announce itself. It quietly settles into the relationship until one day, two people who genuinely love each other start feeling like strangers. And if we are not careful, resentment can destroy a relationship long before either of them realize what is happening. Hi, I'm Dr. Jane, and this is Talk Time with Dr. Jane, a space where we have honest conversations about relationships, marriages, emotional healing, faith, personal growth, and the everyday struggles that many people face but often don't know how to talk about. If you're new here, welcome, and if you've been a part of this community for a while, thank you for coming back. Today we are talking about one of the most dangerous but least discussed relationship killers, resentment. Because many people don't realize they are struggling with resentment until the relationship has already started to suffer. So let's begin by understanding what resentment really is. Many people think resentment is anger. It's not. Anger is usually immediate. Resentment, on the other hand, is accumulated hurts. Anger says, I'm upset about this. Resentment says, I've been carrying this for a very long time. Resentment develops when someone feels hurt repeatedly, but those hurts are never properly acknowledged, addressed, or repaired. It's emotional debt that keeps accumulating over time. The person may continue smiling, they may continue showing up, they may continue to function in their relationship, but internally something is changing. The hurt is piling up, and eventually that hurt begins to affect how they see their partner, how they communicate, how they respond to everyday situations. So if resentment is accumulated hurt, how exactly does it begin? Let's talk about that. In my work as a therapist, I've noticed that resentment really starts with major issues. Sometimes it begins with ordinary moments that happen in many homes every day. For example, a wife repeatedly asks her husband for help with the children, not because she can't do it herself, but because she doesn't want to have to carry everything alone. He says he'll help, and he means well, but somehow she still finds herself handling bedtime, homework, meals, school runs, and emotional caregiving almost entirely on her own. At first, she understands, and then she becomes frustrated, and then she starts feeling unsupported. Eventually, resentment begins to grow. On the other hand, the husband may be working long hours, dealing with enormous pressure, paying bills, and doing everything he can to provide for his family. But every conversation seems to focus on what he hasn't done, what he forgot, what he needs to improve. And of course, over time, he begins to feel unseen, unappreciated, like his efforts don't count, and resentment begins to grow there too. Sometimes resentment develops because one partner keeps raising concerns that are dismissed. Sometimes it develops because apologies never come. Sometimes it develops because promises are repeatedly broken. And sometimes it develops because one partner feels emotionally neglected while the other doesn't even realize there's a problem. It's the wife who keeps saying, can we spend more time together? And nothing changes. It's the husband who keeps saying, I need more respect in how we speak to each other, and still feels unheard. It's the partner who constantly gives but never feels poured into. It's that person who keeps forgiving but never sees meaningful change. The issue is rarely just the event itself. It's what the event represents. It's not really about the dishes. It's about feeling unsupported. It's not really about forgotten anniversaries. It's about feeling unimportant. It's not really about coming home late. It's about feeling alone. And when these experiences happen repeatedly without resolution, resentment quietly begins to take roots. So, how do you know if resentment is already growing in your relationship? Let's talk about some warning signs. One of the first signs is keeping score. You start mentally recording everything. I cooked yesterday, I paid for this, I handled that, you never do this, you never do that, you always do that. The relationship slowly becomes a scoreboard instead of a partnership, and that can totally eat into the relationship. Another sign is that small issues start triggering big reactions. A simple comment becomes a major argument. A forgotten errand leads to tears or explosive frustration. Not because the issue itself is huge, but because it has connected with months or years of unresolved hurts. Another warning sign is emotional withdrawal. You stop explaining, you stop asking, you stop trying. Not because everything is okay, but because you've convinced yourself that nothing is going to change, so there's no point. And this is often when people start saying things like, I'm tired, I've given up, what's the point of talking anymore? You may also notice affection begin to disappear. The hugs become less frequent, the conversations become shorter, the emotional warmth begins to fade, and it doesn't mean that there is no love. No, love is present, but hurt has occupied the space where connection used to exist. And perhaps one of the most dangerous signs is that you begin to assume the worst about your partner. Every mistake feels intentional, every misunderstanding feels personal, every disappointment becomes proof that they don't care. And once resentment reaches this stage, it starts changing how you see each other. And that brings us to why resentment can be so destructive. Resentment changes the lens through which we view our partner. Instead of seeing a tired spouse, we begin to see a selfish spouse. Instead of seeing a mistake, we begin to see a character flaw. Instead of seeing a misunderstanding, we see rejection. And the longer resentment remains unsolved, the stronger that lens becomes. And this is why couples, tell me, I don't even know when things changed. The truth is that things usually change slowly. One disappointment at a time, one unspoken hurt at a time, one unresolved conflict at a time, until eventually the emotional distance becomes impossible to ignore. The good news is that resentment does not have to be the end of the story. So let's talk about how to stop it from taking over your relationship. Now, the first step is addressing issues early. Don't wait until frustration becomes bitterness. Talk about concerns while they are still concerns, not years later when the hurt has become deeply rooted. Secondly, you want to learn to communicate hurts instead of criticism. So instead of saying, you never helped me, try saying, I've been feeling very overwhelmed and I need more support. Instead of saying, you don't care about me, try saying, I've been feeling disconnected lately and I'd love for us to spend more time together. One approach invites defensiveness and the other invites understanding. Thirdly, stop expecting your partner to read your mind. Many people secretly hope that their partner will simply notice what they need. Sometimes they don't. And it's not because they don't care, but because they genuinely don't know. Healthy relationships require communication, not mind reading. And another important step is learning how to repair after conflicts. Apologize sincerely, take responsibility, follow through on promises, make changes where necessary. Trust is rebuilt through consistent action. And finally, don't wait until things become severe before seeking help. Many couples wait until resentment has been building for years before considering counseling, and by then, communication has often broken down significantly. Counseling provides a space where unresolved hurts can be expressed, understood, and addressed. before they become permanent barriers to connection. Now, before we wrap up, I'd like to share something from my counseling desk. One thing I've learned about the years, in my experience, is that many relationships are not suffering from lack of love. They are suffering from accumulated hurts. I've sat with couples who genuinely love each other, couples who still wanted the relationship to work, but somewhere along the way, disappointment, frustration, neglect, and unmet expectations had piled up so high that they could no longer see each other clearly. The beautiful thing is that when those hurts are finally acknowledged and addressed, healing becomes possible. Connection can be rebuilt, trust can be restored, and relationships can recover. But healing usually begins with honesty. Honesty about what hurts, what is missing, and honesty about what needs to change. So if you find yourself becoming increasingly irritated, emotionally distant, or keeping score in your relationship, don't ignore it. Pay attention to what those feelings may be trying to tell you. Resentment is often a signal that something important needs attention, and the sooner you address it, the easier it becomes to repair. I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever seen resentment affect a relationship? What do you think causes resentment to build most often? Share your thoughts in the comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.